So do what you say you're going to do. Sell what you is written. Like, do up a contract. God, please do up a contract. Take a freaking deposit. There is way too many guys out there who, if you take a deposit, at least you've got your materials covered. Yeah, you might lose your labor, but you're not in debt to your suppliers, or you're not out 3 mortgage payments.
Welcome to All Things Wood Floor. This episode, our guest, Ron Teljeur of Acorn Wood Floors and Maintenance Limited out of Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. He is the world's leading expert on top nail flooring, according to me. He's been in it since he was 13-year-old with a background in physics. He's going to tell us why flooring may not be rocket science, but it can get damn close at times. We have a lot to talk about. Business, technical, is Santa Claus Canadian, floor pros around the world, all things wood floor and wood floor business. Welcome, our floor brother from the Great White North, Ron Teljeur. Let's get to it. Ron Teljeur, welcome at last to All Things Wood Floor.
Oh, great to be here.
So now, Ron, you're explaining where you are. Did I get that right? It's Aldergrove, British Columbia,
Aldergrove,
Canada?
It's part of Langley Township, which is part of Greater Vancouver. So there's Vancouver's kind of like Boston. It's got made up of about 14 cities. So basically Vancouver, BC is our market.
And it's funny because you know Boston. If I asked people around the country where, Vancouver or what British Columbia is, they probably have no clue. Give me for all us lay people out there, you're at the western part, above what?
Yeah.
Our Seattle or?
We're basically 2 hours north of Seattle.
British Columbia, was it originally because it was a British colony? Like here, we're so used to the French, Canadian, Quebec, Montreal.
Yeah, no, it was a British colony, and there's actually still Fort Langley historic site, and that was from the Hudson's Bay. Yep. We've actually worked in a house that had the original deed from the Hudson's Bay Company. Wow, which is pretty cool. Yeah, that was. That's old for here. Our city is new. It's it really only started around seriously about early 1900s, late 1800s. So we don't really work in anything older than for now, I guess it'd be about 120, 130 years old. That's it.
Which isn't that
There's nothing older.
Long. Well, the house that you said that you live in, about how old is that? 100?
Yeah, it's built in the 70s. It's called a BC box.
Hey, the house I grew up was built in 1963. The guy that did the floors is still alive. He did the floors in my bedroom a year before I was born. So that's not a very old house. Well, I feel old.
Where I am, no. I the one before this was built in 47, which was actually a mink farm originally. So, yeah. So
back when fur trading was big. So the company is Acorn Wood Floors?
Correct.
And just give me an idea what it is that you're doing. Every floor person does. They're either retail, wholesale, sand, finish, install. Basically, give me everything you guys do. What's on the resume?
Well, we basically concentrate mainly on renovation work. We do some new construction, but it'll be custom homes. Our price point is not friendly to spec homes. But we do repairs, extensions, sand and finish. All the stuff that you'd associate with renos. We do the pre-finished, site finished. It doesn't matter if it's a wood floor. We do it. We'll do small repairs. We'll do large jobs. It doesn't. We do some commercial, but not a lot. Mainly restaurants if we do it. So
I saw online because you contribute to Wood Floor Business Magazine. It said you got best of the best 3 times. Where did that award come from? What is that best of the best?
It's a company called Homestars. It's a customer review site. Started out as a Canadian company and got bought up by I can't remember what the American one is. It's basically you get the reviews and then you get the leads from them, and I can't remember.
Kind of like a Better Homes and Garden thing, kind of a.
It was kind of like Angie's List and all that sort of thing.
Gotcha. And you also got best of many times.
11, I think it's 11 times now.
It's 12. I'm going to brag for you. It's 12. I looked it up.
But yeah, it's actually a really good site. It's well vetted. Every review is vetted before they post it. It's actually a really good site. We do well by it, although the lead quality has gone down. We're getting a lot of stuff where people are trying to repair LVT and laminate, and of course, most of those floors you can't, unless they have extra material, you're not repairing it because it doesn't work. They change profiles, they change pretty much everything within a couple of years of it coming out. So those are replacements, they're not repairs.
Isn't that why we tell every customer, please don't return this, leave a box in the attic or two or something?
Oh, I know.
Right?
Yes, absolutely. We make, there was a recent post, and I saw that we're looking for something to match a Chinese solid wood. And of course, they're doing most of their stuff in metric, which doesn't work with our stuff. And what happens, of course, is the product out of China is now almost exclusively engineered. So all that solid stuff has no backing anymore, and you have to have it made. So we've gone to Soroyan and a couple other companies, and they actually make custom batches for us. So we send in a piece and they'll mimic that product. So the tongue and grooves are different, thickness is different, widths are different. Basically everything about the product is different. But we do manage to extend, like on our renos, they'll add like a living room or something. It's enough that it'll get done, but it is definitely expensive to do. So all the savings they had from purchasing a less expensive product in the first place are out the window. It's an interesting thing, actually, because people are willing to pay to fix or add on to something where they weren't originally willing to pay sort of market value, if you will.
Sure. When we look at products as a distributor, you say that, I'll be in a meeting and they'll talk to everybody, they'll present the product, and I'll say, oh, it's metric. And the room will stop and they'll go, oh, he's an installer. The biggest thing that concerns me isn't that. It's that means you get 3 sizes, maybe identically 3, because they don't mess around in China. If there's a box, there's no oxygen in it. It's perfectly fit, and that goes in perfectly into a container. You take a box of American product, you can shake it. It sounds like a maraca. If it's made by them, a cockroach couldn't live in there. And the thing is, when you go to install it, it's either a brick pattern or H joints, and it's a terror because now you've got a pre-finished product. You got to cut to make a ladder, and now you have a cut end. Right? I hear you.
Yeah, it's I know, and a lot of North American product is going to sort of set sizes versus true random length.
Right.
We sell a product called Vintage out of basically out of Toronto, and they have a product called Northern Solid Sawn, which is their engineered. That's a sister company to Mirage, and those products come in standard sizes. They're not random. I mean, there's 7 or 8 different sizes in there, but they're all the same size. 7 or 8. And they're multiples of each other. So you really have to watch out. You have to cut, take 2 or 3 inches off just to make your butt ends not line up exactly. And it takes a bit of extra care just to install it so it looks nice, right? You don't want brick patterns. You don't want H's. It's all but I mean, it was kind of funny. Years ago, I sold a job that was a company called Woodmaster, and all the boards were 4 feet long. And a customer calls up and he's got a complaint. And so I go take a look at it. And so this is when I used to work for another company. I wouldn't sell that product out of my own company. But anyway, I go out there and the room's 23 foot 11 long. And he actually lined up every single butt end. It was like 100% lined up. He goes, this was great. I only had to cut 1 inch off every row. That wasn't his complaint. So I'm looking at it. I can hardly take my eyes off of that. And he had some other complaint, to this day, it blew me away that somebody would do that. And so do-it-yourselfers, they quite often they pay less for something, but then on top of it, they go and devalue it further by doing an improper job. It's one of those funny things you look at. It's like you saved a lot of money, but you didn't save a penny.
No, you walk in and you look and you go, oh, did the homeowner do this? Like, isn't it great? You're like, yeah, floor people don't do it this way. And maybe if ahead of time they say, I want it to look like a brick wall, or because you said all the sizes are the same. I know when a tile guy did it, because that's what they do. We're trying to make ladders and end joints, and think of it the very first time you learn flooring, keep the ladders, keep the staggers away from each other. And it sounds kind of childlike, but you're right. Now I see that, and I see 30, 40 of them, or every one is 2 inches apart. It drives me insane. And you got to take that person outside and say, listen, I want to help you, but you need to learn not to do this anymore.
Yeah, it's unfortunately, it's become more normal as our trade goes down. I mean, it's not improving. There's a lot of young guys who are really good and thankfully are, willing to learn and but we see a lot of stuff where it's guys who are not really in the wood floor trade. They're carpenters, they're like you say, tile guys. Somebody's just doing it because they can. And it's a bit cringeworthy sometimes. So
maybe they learned that, like you and I would learn later, and the customer would say, can you get me some LVT? And okay, we'll fine, we'll do it. But they learn first on that stuff. Then they think, well, this must be how a hardwood floor goes down. And come on, there's enough YouTube out there. You put enough stuff out there. Let me switch gears a second. Did you grow up in the wood floor industry?
Yeah.
I think we have the same birthday. I won't throw it out there, but would you consider yourself a Gen X or a boomer? I'm on the cusp. I'm a boomer.
I'm last year of the boomers.
Yeah, me too. So, I'm like right at the end.
But I don't consider myself a boomer because all the generalization about them doesn't fit me. I'm not stuck in the past.
That's why I asked you, because we've talked before, and I'm like, wow, we're probably born almost in the same day, and I go the boomer way. Probably because I'm from 7 kids and my parents are very old school. It's interesting because there's a lot of generational stuff related today to just about everything. And you mentioned growing up in flooring. What was it like growing up in flooring? What age did you get introduced to this?
Seriously, 13.
Okay. Were you there? Were you in British Columbia, or were you somewhere else?
Yeah, no, I've lived here all my life. Yeah.
Okay. Is it different if you've traveled and talked to a lot of other people, and I guess they say you can't particularly just come to the US and work. It's not that simple.
No, it isn't.
Tell me about that. Will you people talk about that?
Well, I mean, you need a green card to do it, and they don't exactly give those out to people in trades unless it's maybe a skilled trade, electricians, stuff that's a red seal sort of thing. So I'm not sure if red seal in Canada, this means you can work anywhere under that ticket.
Okay.
But generally, I mean, they had a time where they were bringing in trades guys and stuff into Canada, and I think the same was true in the U.S., but it's very hard to get actually, it's harder to get into Canada than it's the U.S., actually. I had a couple guys who wanted to work here, and I couldn't get them in. But yeah, it's like I can't even. There's a little community. It's called Point Roberts. It's right off the end. It's not even connected landmass wise to the U.S., but they had canneries there at the turn of the century when they were doing the border, and the U.S. wanted those canneries. So as a result, that little piece of land, it's on a peninsula, is now U.S. and we can't work there. So the guys have to come up from Bellingham or Tacoma or wherever in Washington to work in that part of Washington.
I never thought, when we were kids, my family up in Sherbrooke, we just drive up, they stop you at the border, you have your license, and you go in. And years later,
Yeah.
it became, you had to have a license and a passport and all that. I never thought,
Yeah.
we always just think you're our happy cousin that lives north of us. We could just come back and forth. You're the one that said to me, no, you really can't. Like if somebody said, hey, you want to come down and work with me in D.C. or Alabama or Florida or South Carolina? You're like, no, I don't think you can't, right? You'd have to really work at that.
No, I can't. Actually, I can go down as a student in a school. I found this out recently. I was asked to help instruct at Dave Marzalik's recent school. And, I like the ability to cross the border, so I don't want to mess it up. So I checked into it. And I can go down as a student, but I can't go down as an instructor. If you're going down for a registered charity or a group like the NWFA, I could do it, but not for something that's not associated. If it's a for-profit thing or it's not a registered charity or that sort of thing, I can't do it.
Same going if we were to go up there, same thing?
Most likely, yes.
Okay.
I don't know, but Canada is actually more restrictive than the U.S. is.
Is that part of NAFTA or something? That's interesting. I didn't know that.
No, it's just in general. I mean, NAFTA, it's not going to get better, but it's not the NAFTA. That's trade goods. It's immigration policy that governs and that's both sides. It doesn't matter whether it's U.S. or Canada. It's immigration that deals with whether you're allowed to work somewhere and have a work permit. All that. That's all immigration.
So go back to it. You were about 13. What did that look like? How did you get dragged into this? Remember your first job at all?
Oh yeah, that was my first job. It's been my only job. No, I was actually my dad's company did it was called Teljeur Floors, and they started in '59. So they would take me out to a new house and drop me off with smooth edge and carpet pad, and I would just do all the smooth edge and carpet pad, and they paid me the same as what any of the other guys would do. I mean, obviously I was slower, but I made pretty good money for a kid. Because they paid me per square foot or a square yard, I guess. At
Regular
that time.
wages. That's awesome.
Regular wages. Yeah. So I had more money than most of my friends. And so do that on a weekend. In the summer, I did it, most days.
What do you do with your money at that age?
Bought a canoe, bought a car, bought stereos for my car. Well, not at 13. But
you take the back seat out and put giant household speakers in there?
Only when I went camping.
Why not? Commute with nature and crank up 100 watts of sound.
Yeah.
When did it become hard? When did you get into the hardwood part of it?
It was probably about 15 or so. Still summer work. When I turned 16, it was summer work, but I had my own truck. So my dad, by that time, he would send me out on jobs by myself, actually, for installing. So I've been installing, and then my dad actually introduced floating floors in 1979 at a trade show here, home show, and it was they were overrun in the booth, so I had to finish up my homework on Friday so I could be there with the family business Saturday and Sunday and help with the overload. Wow. Because I started installing floating floors back in '79, so it's sort of second nature. I now really don't like floating floors. My least favorite type of install, just because of at that time we said it can go over anything, absolutely and we did. We went over ozite, we went over carpet pad, you name it. Anyway, yep. But yeah, and now it's like the most fussy subfloor prep regulations out of all the different type of installs.
What was the first thing that you got a hold of? Was it sanding, finishing, or install?
Install. I'm sort of an installer.
Okay.
I can do sanding and make a nice job of it. But with my company today, I'm still. My son and I are still doing the installs, or most of them. And my other guys, they love sanding and finishing. And they don't like installs. So. It kind of works out.
So somewhere after probably around high school age, you went to college. Where'd you go to college? Where'd you go to school?
UBC.
For what?
Physics.
My son-in-law is a physicist. Good for you. It helps, doesn't it? When you get into
does.
flooring and the layout, and tell me about that.
Oh, and you know what? We have a lot of our construction here is going towards multifamily, and as a result, you've got the IIC, STC sound. Mostly here, it's Vancouver's a bit of a laughing stock in that sense because they ask for 72 IIC, and we don't have suspended ceilings here, so that's virtually impossible. No, it is impossible actually. But there's such a marketing game in the sound control industry that we basically have to almost lie. And I say to my customers, I say, well, that's not possible. When are you ready to start lying?
Right.
And they were like, no, I don't want to. It's like, well, you're going to have to because, I put together a PDF document that has a whole whack of different brands and sort of their honesty about their IIC ratings. And I mean, there's so much that's not talked about in that, but sure. It's kind of like I always tell people that sound rating without an ASTM code behind it is like a speed sign that has no units to it. So it's like your speed limit is 80. Okay, well, is that miles an hour, kilometers an hour, centimeters per second, inches per millennium?
What if I wasn't going to stay out for an hour?
The BS in that industry is a bit mind-boggling. It's just, it's actually a real challenge here because of all the multifamily we have. But
you know what? Back up a second for the folks that are going to listen to the podcast that don't get involved, because I do this in design engineering, especially if you put a floor in a music studio or worse, a multi-condo level where I've had one where they did the sound wrong and they have to pay everybody move out. They get sued for millions. You want to go over the IIC STC just in definition for us so that people know what we're talking about? Okay.
So IIC is impacted insulation class, and that's so like footsteps. If you drop something on your floor, that it's basically impact,
absorbing impact. Sound.
So
your neighbor's speakers, boom, 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 boom.
That's actually STC.
STC.
Because STC is sound transmission coefficient, which is ambient noise like music, talking, that sort of thing, where it's noise within a unit that radiates out from it. Right. That's actually harder to stop than impact.
There's the reflective sound that bounces off walls, like in a studio like mine. I'm hanging cloth everywhere to keep it from pinging off the walls. And then there's a type that comes from your neighbor upstairs. Those are the two. But in flooring, what happens, right, is your flooring could either muffle that or transfer it even more. So it sounds like you're getting involved in some things that are pretty serious.
Yeah, and I mean, you see all the time where it's like, oh, I nailed down my sound barrier. It's like, well, you no longer have a sound barrier.
That's why the floating floor.
Yeah, and or double stick glue downs. I mean, my favorite is to do that versus a floating.
I glue cork, then glue the floor, or glue sound insulation.
Yeah, we've got all kinds of there's so many different cushions out now. I like rubber and cork, and then there's another brand we use that's made in Canada. It's more like a woven fabric material. That's what we use most often. But yeah, it's not rocket science, but it really, there's a bit more to it than most people want. You can't just go and pick a cushion that says it's a 75, and now we're getting people who are really ridiculous, and it says there's an 80, and I mean that just simply,
isn't 57 the number usually? I always find it's around 57.
Building codes normally are around 55.
Okay,
between 55 and 60 is sort of standard. But yeah, it's
this is all important. Why for the layman out there, this is important because
you have to get approval from a strata, or I'm not sure if that's the term used there, but the strata council has to approve any renovations to a multifamily building. Right. So if you don't conform to their standard, you don't get your project passed, and you can't move forward. Funny thing with that is that most of these condos, the condos don't really want hard surface floors of any kind. So what they did, and this is started here more in the 80s, I guess. They would go online if they could, because online didn't exist that back then so much. But you go online and you find the highest IIC rating you can find, and you Google that and you search and you come up that 72 is the highest IIC I can find. So what they would do in the strata is they would make their requirement 73.
Right. Just to keep you honest.
There. Now you can't have it. But what they don't realize is that rating also eliminates low nap carpet over thinner underpads. Actually, eliminating carpets, which is typically the double stick thin carpet glued to a rubber cushion, is what all the concourses and the hallways were done. Right. So they're actually illegal on their own carpet.
Even though they're probably quieter.
Oh, they are, yeah. I'm not going to say carpet's not quiet.
You study physics, and I think the third part of this, if I'm correct, is the delta coefficient. So you can add things. You explain that, because I know you know what you're talking about. Explain the delta for that.
So a typical IIC rating is for a complete sandwich of the flooring, the cushion, the subfloor structures,
glue, fasteners,
everything,
adhesive,
the whole sandwich.
Yeah.
A delta rating is the change in sound performance caused by one single element. So in this case, it would be the cushion. So they give it a delta rating. So that's the difference of that sandwich with and without that cushion. So that's the difference. So delta in math terms is difference or change. So that's what the delta is. So the delta rating is how much it changes the performance of a substructure or total structure performance.
My sister lives in Switzerland, and they're very crammed together. They don't even have a car. They use the metro at that. And I thought that was odd. And she goes, no, there's $1 million condo, and you will never hear the neighbors. It's all planned. Yeah. That's why it's important today, where they're building people closer and tighter. You're paying a lot of money. You want some privacy. You need to have the sound. It has to be quiet. A cheap apartment, you can hear everything. So that's why it becomes important. If you're a hardwood floor person, you're going to go get into commercial, light commercial, even some parts of residential. You really need to know your sound. I worked for a company that they were sued for so much money. They had to pay for everyone to move out. They found out after people were moving in, the sound was horrible. They had to rebuild every wall. They put extra drywall over every room, over everything. It was crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to really make it proper, you need separated at the demising walls, suite to suite. You need to actually build separate walls that are separated by about an inch or so and separately insulated. Nothing ties those two walls together. I mean, there was a tower in Seattle where there was a class action lawsuit where the cushion manufacturer claimed a high rating, 70 something. But Seattle, like Vancouver, there aren't really many buildings with suspended ceilings, and that rating depended on suspended ceilings. So they were actually sued on that, and rightfully so, really. I think a couple more lawsuits, and maybe they'll start telling the truth on the... although it's gotten better. When I walk the NWFA show, I purposely go around to all the sound abatement product booths and take a look at their specs. And the specs have gotten better. They're more honest with it. They go, okay, well, on a wood subfloor, it's this. On a concrete subfloor, it's this with a suspended ceiling. And that's the thing, is every situation, every type of construction, it's not the cushion, it's the total sandwich that gives you the IIC rating. So,
sure. Or, when you look at this collectively, they ask about what's a pet peeve in flooring, right? And I say, well, when someone's helping me and I got to stop them because they're doing something wrong and they get mad and go, well, it's not rocket science. Well, you just said it. So we should have a podcast where you, the physicist, can tell us this is rocket science, because this is where we're going. Sometimes you do get there and you start working not with the flooring contractor or the customer, but a designer, an engineer, somebody, and they say, listen, this is really important. Can we sit down and talk about this? And they do appreciate that, brings it to another level. That puts you in that category of doing studios and amphitheaters, theaters, et cetera.
Yeah.
Let me switch gears a second. Go back to when you started, you're 13, get rolling. How did you start your own company after working for your father? Because now you're out of college, you're done with and go from college to starting your own company for me.
Okay, so I got out of UBC in '87, and economy wasn't great. We'll leave it at that. Yeah. Couldn't get a job with my degree. Couldn't even get a entry level anything, and I just fell back into flooring again. Started working with a union shop. I upset the the journeyman because they kept on asking for me doing all the pre-finished stuff. They laid me off. So then I just started subcontracting. That's what I'd always done through university, through the summers and everything. So I started subcontracting again, and did that for several years with my brothers. And I grew that. Actually, we ended up running 3 crews, each crew led by myself and each of my brothers. So yeah, we were actually working for about 7 or 8 different carpet shops. They all got really good names in hardwood. And then it sort of, okay, well that's, and then the GST came in here and everybody wanted everything done without GST. So it's goods and service tax, which is a federal tax. And everybody figured that, with a case of beer, they can avoid that. And I wasn't willing to go to jail for a case of beer.
Right.
So I thought, so I ended up, my youngest brother started working for a company called BC Hardwood, which is well over 100-year-old company now here. My middle brother moved to Alberta, started doing sales there for a company called Hardwood Milling, which my dad was actually the general manager of. And then I started working for Woodpecker, which happened to be a company that my dad also started. That was the floating floor company, basically, that he started. Did that for about 3 years, and then found out I do not work well with others. The owner there at the time was he didn't mind litigation. He wore this long list of court cases as a badge of honor. And I thought, well, that doesn't make sense. Just solve your issues, get paid. But he didn't do it that way. So it was that and a few other things. And I just got tired of the office politics.
Maybe no one would get along with them. That's ridiculous.
That's not entirely untrue.
Okay.
Yes. I left on pretty good terms. So we got out and immediately started working. My dad had already started for my brother. And so as my brother, my mom, and my wife were already running Acorn 2 years before I quit at this other company. So I joined and I kind of took it over. And so that's how I got it.
Well, what does it look like? What does the company look like today, and what kind of work are you doing? What'd you do this week? What does it look like? Is it a retail? You have a retail?
It's retail.
Okay.
Yeah, it's retail.
Cool.
We've got a little showroom. The cost of real estate in Vancouver is ridiculous. So we actually lost our lease on the last building. So we ended up kind of having to figure something out. So what we ended up doing is buying a house with a large shop in the backyard. So now I have my workshop in my backyard. Some of my warehousing, I sublet some of my warehousing to some wood, or not wood, but flooring warehouse operations. Rosedale and PCW are the ones here. And we got a little showroom that's 150 square feet. And that's all it is now. We used to have a shop, our shops used to be 2,000 to 3,000 square feet. But the cost of that here today, the leases for that size of building would be $4,500 to $6,000 a month. And I didn't feel like giving all that money. Now, in the end, I'm paying about the same per month, but I own the property and I'm not going to raise my own because we're seeing here, and I'm sure this is common in a lot of, especially in more busy markets, we're seeing, 40, 60, 80% lease increases at the end of a lease. So companies, it's not small business friendly for sure. I pay almost as much for my 500 square foot showroom as I did originally. This is years ago, of course, but 92, 93. What is it now? So in 2000, actually, I opened my first showroom.
Okay.
And at that time, that shop was close to 3,000 square feet, and I paid 1,800 a month. So now I'm paying 1,500 a month for a 500 square foot showroom.
Did you just have a grand opening recently on this one?
When we moved, yeah, that was when did we do that? About a year ago.
About a year ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I saw it online in Wood Floor Business magazine.
Yeah.
In that showroom, is it wood, vinyl, carpet, LVT, mostly one or another, or you have everything?
It's mainly wood. We do have LVT, but that's only shown on swinger sets. We've got
Swinger
actually,
set,
no,
is
sorry.
that like a keychain?
Like a little chain set.
Yeah, okay, chain
like,
set.
Yeah. But that's the laminate, which my least favorite. And then LVT. But we only deal with Karndine pretty much.
Sure. That's high end, right? Super high end.
It is, yeah. It's kind of the originator of that type of flooring. They've been around since, I think it's late 40s, early 50s. But yeah, mostly it's hardwood. Like most of the samples, I think our showroom has room for 500 samples, and we're not fully full on our samples, but I think we've probably got about 350 in the shop,
Okay.
and out of that, probably, I would guess 250, 275 are hardwood. And that's pre-finished. Of course, the thing with pre-finished is that every variation is a separate sample, where in site finished, you can kind of represent a floor type with one sample. You can show 10 different things, so you have much. By default, you're showing more pre-finished because you don't need to show as much unfinished. And an unfinished is like, oh, what do you want? And you have that variability and the customization, and you can do pretty much anything, right? So our market is mostly just wide plank, straight ahead, kind of boring. And if you can make it gray, that's awesome. Which I don't understand. We live in a rainforest, and our winters are gray.
People don't think about that. The great Canadian rainforest.
It's well, Vancouver's weird, and Vancouver Island, we rarely get snow. It's like we get snow for maybe a month, or where it's a good chance of it. But we have years where we don't get any snow in the Lower Mainland. The rest of the province, Whistler gets lots. That's not too far away. There's ski hills. There's 3 ski hills that overlook Vancouver. So you go up the hills locally and you go skiing.
Yeah.
And it's night skiing. It's kind of cool because at night, the whole city's lit up and you're going down ski runs and you see Vancouver all lit up.
Yeah, we do that here. Cool. I love it. Now, with all this, with your booth and your showroom, do you take a booth and do trade shows?
Yeah, we got out of it with COVID. I guess we got out of it. Plus, it was super expensive for the show downtown. But we started last year. We actually had really good results, but it's a smaller show and it's more into the valley. So, not knowing Vancouver, the valley is going. So Vancouver's the waterfront in the west, and then when you go east, that's the valley. Basically, you're going back up to an area called Hope, which is where they filmed Rambo. So that's getting into the mountains and the valleys. But anyway, so in the valley, a lot of movement because of generational wealth, and they're selling off in Vancouver, and they're moving further up the valley, and they get a better. You get a nicer place for less.
So with the model that you're working, like, what does your supply chain look like here? If a floor person goes to a professional distributor, and then in other places they buy direct, they can do what's that supply chain look like for what you do?
There is really only one major wholesaler here for flooring in hardwood. There are like Goodfellow and a couple other big operations,
big in Canada.
but
Yep.
they're big in Canada. But they all sell products I won't sell.
Right.
So I'm a bit of a prima donna.
All floor pros are prima donna.
Oh, well, but there are lots of guys who sell those. Like, so my oldest son is actually working now as a brand so they call themselves a manufacturer, but it's product that is made overseas and then imported. So that is more the common thing here.
Sure.
We're a major port city, so. And the other thing a lot of people don't think about here, like in the U.S., you guys are protected by the CARB regulations.
Yes.
We don't have that in Canada. So unless you're bringing something into Canada and then expecting to sell it into the U.S., you don't have to comply.
Ron, that was my next question, because you talked about it in an article you wrote. So you don't have to, the CARB, the California Air Resource Board, you don't have to kind of subscribe to that.
Not if you're keeping your product in Canada.
Oh, okay.
Because Canada actually has no maximum formaldehyde content.
For like VOCs and things aren't restricted? Okay. Can you get poly in a 5-gallon pail, or does it have to be quartz like everybody else?
No, it's quartz.
Okay.
Which is silly,
Yeah, we'll go there a whole other day.
It's just, that's just.
Is there a lot of legislation and law on you up there? Seems here I guess we just got used to it, but is there a lot any different than us?
It usually follows what the U.S. does, just because we're so connected market-wise. Anybody making finishes in Canada, basically it's just the same as the U.S. Unless, generally California is the most restrictive. So some manufacturers are willing to accommodate those, and others go, okay, we just won't sell in California. It's sort of the same thing here, but in Canada, if you're making finishes here, you're making it for the U.S. market. Because the Canadian market, the reality is Canada's population is actually quite a bit less than just California.
Sure. Wow. I know that.
So, we all live in the South. Like I live, I'm on a street called 27B. And so that means 27 avenues off of the U.S. border.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Here in Maine, they do it's fire lanes. How many fire lanes are you from town?
Yeah.
So let me listen. You have a physics background, and you're from Canada. I have to ask you a question. I think I've asked you this before, but look, everybody would like to know. You think technically, if you drove further north above you, is Santa Claus Canadian? I'm just thinking.
Well, it's obvious. Come on.
Right? I thought about it the other day. If you point out the kids, look, that's where Santa Claus lives. And I think he's wearing a toque. He's a Canadian.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, there's claims to the North Pole because of oil and all that. But but actually, there was a ruling not too long ago that the North Pole is in Canada.
Look, so. I knew it. So when you're working with all this material, are you doing social media? How do you do your advertising?
I guess the only things we actually spend money on for advertising are the 2 home shows,
sure,
and our Home Stars page, and that's it.
Do you offer floor maintenance too? Just kind of curious.
Oh yeah. We do everything. Like, so So with part of our sanding, if somebody doesn't need a sand and finish, if the screen and coat's going to work, I'll sell the screen and coat. I'm not, and we've done that for years. And the actual name of my company is Acorn Wood Floor Maintenance Limited, not Acorn Wood Floors. But we found we just kept on getting it the name kind of restricted what we were able to sell.
Sure.
So we just went to Acorn Wood Floors. But yeah, I mean, I've done with my dad's company. We mainly did buffed in Duraseal, old school. Um, yeah, so I'm not against doing those finishes. I just find that the real reason wood came back was the introduction of conversion varnishes like Glitza when Glitza was still out of Sweden. Um, so that would be in the 80s. So that was really when wood floors came back because they were maintainable. You didn't have to wax your floors. You didn't have to oil your floors.
Right.
Easy maintenance. They were durable. You could put it in a kitchen. It worked well with the pastel colors because the conversion varnishes weren't yellow. So all these different reasons. But that's when wood floors came back. I mean, the year I was born in 64, that was a bad year to be in wood flooring because that was the year, I think that was the same years for the US, but the CMHC, which is our Canada's Central Mortgage and Housing Corporation, they approved carpets for use in new construction or in houses. So when you built a house, you could use carpet from 1964 forward.
Yeah, and 54 was the first time in the U.S. they approved it. Before that, it was hardwood.
Yeah, and you had no choice. So if you're if you had a mortgage and it's going through one of the mortgage backers, then you had to have hardwood floors. But hardwood took a 90% drop in 1964 here. Of course, my dad knew about that coming in, so they started learning how to sew carpets together and like literally sew with wax thread. And I still remember I did some of that myself.
Isn't that something?
So yeah, it was. I mean, that's where it sort of came from. But yeah, sorry, I lost track.
So Ron, remember when we were kids? Remember because you go to the dentist because you had a bad tooth. Yeah. That was it. And then 5 years later, you got another bad tooth. I remember getting out of college and getting into flooring and going to my dentist in the 80s. And I remember leaving and they go, "Sir, excuse me." And she had a calendar. She goes, "We want your next appointment 1 year from now." Yeah. It blew my mind. But I remember thinking, if I told all my customers I'd like to look at your floors in a year, and I did it. And, I got a paper calendar. I wrote it in there. And then I would call them a year later and say, "I'm sure your floors are fine, but how about a buff and coat? We're in the area. It was $1 a foot. We'll do it for 50 cents. And what we would do is we would book the guys to just go out with a buffer and some coating stuff all day on Friday. Friday was that way you didn't get caught on a big job. You could go out and do a bunch, get paid and do this stuff. And then luckily the computer comes along and you can schedule that on your phone. So I never thought about now you go anywhere. They'll like, "We'll see you in a year."
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Proctologist.
Well, pretty much. Yeah. The one product I did do that on was acrylic impregnated floors.
Okay.
Because technically you weren't, you can sand them, but the idea was maintenance. Yeah. And they were expensive floors. I guess they still are because that's now, what do you call it? Nidri took over all of that. But we would sell, just a clean and spray buff.
Yeah.
And in restaurants and stuff, they just shut it down. We get it in there. It was great for them because there's no sanding, there's no nothing. You're just cleaning and buffing it up again.
They made a mistake in the 90s because, like, say, Harco Pattern Plus was in every mall. You could go in it and I put some cleaner on there. They started making acrylic impregnated with a thin coat of urethane. That was ridiculous.
I know, and
right? You screwed it up. Exactly. You go in, you go, "What is this?" It's all scratched. And they're mad because it's acrylic impregnated, but it looks like it's got the crap kicked out of it because they put poly on the surface.
Yeah, I know. It's funny because a lot of products, they're what they are because they are what they are. And the maintenance applies. It's such different, like today it's the hard wax oils and that sort of thing. It's kind of funny that I look at it because the reason that hardwood floors died in 64 is nobody wanted to wax and oil anymore. Exactly. And now we're actually moving back. From my business, we haven't had great success with oil finished floors in a retail, like in the household situations. It's different in a restaurant and stuff where they're willing to put money into it to keep it looking good.
Right.
But most people in our market will not do the necessary maintenance to keep an oil floor looking good. I know a lot of guys right now are cursing while they're listening, but that's for my market, for my customers, that's my truth.
Don't get me wrong; it's absolutely beautiful. Some of that.
Oh, they're gorgeous. I like oil finished floors. I just don't think they're practical for 90% of my customers.
Hey, wood floor pros! This is Kim Walgren, the longtime editor of Wood Floor Business. It's that time of year where the most talented wood floor pros from around the world enter their best work of the year in the Wood Floor Business Design Awards. There are categories for residential, commercial, sports floors, stairs, and next gen, which is for companies with an owner 35 years old or younger. And the Wood Floor Business readers also choose the Reader's Choice winner from among all the entrants. All winners receive prizes from our contest sponsor, and one winner receives a $500 gift card. Entries are free and open to the entire wood flooring industry. Just go to woodfloorbusiness.com for more info. Now let's get back to Stephen Diggins' conversation with lifelong wood floor pro Ron Teljeur.
Ron, you might have mentioned this. Did they recently, like the NWFA, didn't they change the accept what they consider a sandable veneer on an engineered floor?
Yeah, I think it's minimum 3 millimeter.
Yeah, I think you told me that, like 2.5 or to 3 millimeter or something like that.
Yeah, so it's I think that's a move in the right direction. I mean, when I got into this, the thing I like about the industry is the longevity of what we put in. And what my dad always told me is do a good job, make it look, use the right amount of nails, glue, whatever. But make sure that you're putting it in right because this floor will probably outlast you.
Yes.
Which is what makes our industry green. When we're starting to put out there products that are a millimeter wear layer with texturing, like wire brushing or some light hand scrape or something, there's no chance that you're going to sand that.
Landfill.
So you're just throwing it away. Yeah. And there's still, you might have it on a composite backing. Yeah, you're reusing something, but that ends up in the landfill, so that's really no better than all the products that, as our prima donna selves, we like to hack on LVT and laminate. But really, when you do that, our product is no better and it's not going to last as long. It's not, therefore, not really green. So, I like the fact that stuff is supposed to outlast me.
Yeah. Especially if it's organic or it's natural, like wood is.
Yeah, I mean, it's tying up carbon fiber, so it's actually, regardless of your status on climate change, it does tie carbon matter up, where the vinyls don't. It's interesting though, because it's a real change I see in guys going, oh no, we're just going to tear it out, and it's a perfectly good 3/4 solid, but it happens to be 2 1/4 wide or 3 1/4 wide.
Yeah,
oh no, we want wide plank.
Yeah.
And they tear out the solid stuff and they put in an engineered plank that's with a 2 millimeter wear layer. And it's not cheap, wider. That's the rule for wood. Wide, long, and clear grade is all of those increase the price.
Sure.
But yeah, it's an interesting change, and I don't think it's good for the industry. I see a lot of, like when I started, the industry was more mom and pop. The mills were mom and pop. The distribution was mom and pop. The stores were mom and pop. Right. And we've gone corporate. The wood flooring industry at that time was not friendly for corporate structures because they were small mills and they were small distributors. And so it wasn't big. So unlike, I was involved with vinyl and carpet, and the difference between the distributors when I was doing deliveries for my dad, the difference was striking. So I'm out there 16, 17 years old, picking up materials for the next week or whatever. And you go into the carpet ones, and they're just massive warehouses. You go in for the lino, and they're just massive, like Armstrong and all that. Huge operations. And you go to the pickup for the hardwood, and it's like 2 guys And it's like, yeah, wait, we got another guy coming here, so you're gonna have to wait 10 minutes or 15 minutes before he's loaded up. If we'll get to you eventually.
Sure.
It's a totally different mindset. And that's probably one of the biggest changes in the industry is just the corporate takeover of the industry.
And when they see money in these big companies, so I teach seminar, and I had this one I do on the last day for retailers and it would be about understanding big box stores and understanding distribution through larger channels, larger companies. And they would all walk in and get ready. I'd leave up on the wall. It was a big photo of a cockroach, a nuclear mushroom cloud, and a guy nailing a floor. And they'd sit down and I'd say, now remember, when Armageddon comes and there's nothing left but a mushroom cloud and a cockroach, there will be hardwood flooring installers. And they would laugh, and I'd say, because you big companies always forget about us. You move on and you court people and you take them to hunting clubs and take them on vacations. And who do you leave out of the picture? Who's got the money? You put them in business. They know nothing about flooring. And then you go, where's the guy that installs it? And they're at home going, I charged $2 more for putting in something I didn't supply, which they should.
Yep.
You still need, and what's our biggest problem in the industry today? The tradesmen. You need that flooring tradesman, and as you're alluding to, we need less corporate and more training so these younger, folks have a chance at it. Don't you find, now that I'm older, I find that, I say it all the time, less is more, and I think you wrote something in Wood Floor Business about more doesn't equal more. Is that correct? It was brilliant, so just say yes.
Yes, basically.
You find that, though? I find sometimes less is more. More of the right stuff is better.
Yeah.
But with more training.
Yeah. And I was asked to help put together the union training program. I'm not union, but I guess I've been at it long enough that I'm okay. But I helped put together, along with a bunch of other guys, Chell Nymark, Mike Peterson, a bunch of guys from BC Hardwood. And we put together a program, and it was the timing was sad because we had it's a 3-year apprenticeship, it's class time, it's all these things. And what happened is 2008, and that is the year that we finished it. I think 2009 it was put into use with the existing union apprentices, and by 2010 most of those were laid off.
7 and 8 into 9 was bad.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I think the only people using that program now are the union. It was supposed to be something that was more widespread, but I think a lot of the problems for training is just the way the industry is structured. There's mostly subcontractors, and they're not paying into a training program like the unions are. So how do you fund the training? Nothing's for free. And so how do you pay for that training? There's nobody contributing any kind of per square foot fee or something like that to cover the training costs. So why do we not have training? Well, because there's no mechanism to provide money for it.
Right.
And I think that's true everywhere, other than Europe. I mean, Europe is a totally different thing.
Right. When you talk about training, I have this thing called the 5-tool player. What's a Swiss Army knife? I think you call it the Swiss Army knife. The person that does a little bit, has the talent to do just about everything.
Oh yeah, definitely. He's the Swiss Army knife of whatever. Yeah,
right. So I used to say okay, in flooring, can you install, sand, finish, buff, coat, do stains, all that stuff? But in distribution, it's can you communicate? It's all communication. Can you sell? Yeah. Can you understand a profit margin? Can you be fair? Can you communicate and build long-term relationships with the customer? Some guys can or cannot do one of 5 things. Just like in baseball, can you bat? Can you hit for average? Can you, et cetera? When you're training, you look for those kind of people, right? That kind of that Swiss Army knife, as you told me, about the person that has all these tools in their bag. And then don't they all just go off and start their own company?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, I've been lucky because the guys I have still he doesn't want to run, he doesn't want to do the sales, he doesn't want a showroom. He likes because I operate a slightly different than normal. I give them a cost per square foot for their contract, but I supply all the finishes, the sandpaper, everything. So they're getting their labor rate is their labor rate. It's not all the materials are already covered. So they're actually getting more. Like a lot of guys will work for, I don't know, say $3 a square foot or whatever as a subcontractor, but they still have to provide finish or sandpaper and whatever. My guys are getting that kind of money, and I'm providing all of the stuff, so they actually make more money.
Sure. But if you go out there and lower your price to be competitive, you're just giving things up, right? It just seems.
Well, yeah. I mean, it takes a certain amount of money to manage a company. That took a while for me to learn, but I did learn it eventually. And I think one of the great things about the whole online availability is I think young guys now have a way better opportunity to learn all this stuff way earlier in life. Margins and whether you use margin or markup, whatever, just charge enough, make enough that you can pay for everything, and that you cover your hidden costs. So your workers' compensation, your insurance costs, because without insurance, every time you go on a job, if you own stuff, you're putting it all on the line every job.
Right.
You could lose everything. WCB, like compensation, you could also lose everything if one of your workers gets injured and you don't have that stuff. They're coming after you personally. Right. So all this stuff is important. And I taught a few guys, not in our industry, but I had a concrete guy, and he had no coverage on anything. He's working in multifamily. That's another thing for multifamily. You need a certain amount of liability coverage.
Sure.
So, but stuff like that, people don't think about, right?
No, they wing it.
Yeah. So winging is bad.
Have all these things come in to weigh on you over the last 20, 30 years in regards to growth and downsizing? Did you find that there were times you're growing and then you kind of dial it back and you're downsizing a bit? Like today, are you more downsized or are you getting larger?
Yeah, I definitely downsized. I used to run 6 crews. Basically, I was an administrator by that point, and that's kind of what you have to resign yourself to if you're going to grow your business. And I know there's lots of guys like grow. You kind of, when you grow like that, you have to manage the business. You cannot be out there out on the tools unless you hire somebody to do the managing for you. But that is the control of the business. So when I was running 6 crews, I was constantly, I'm selling, I'm doing work orders, I'm doing payroll, I'm going around fixing all the mistakes and the stuff left behind. It's basically a lot of babysitting. And I think that term is probably what most guys who run bigger operations, I think they all understand babysitting. Mm-hmm. I got tired of it. I kind of had a natural out because when the Great Recession happened, we got hit later. So 2010 here in BC, we had the Olympics, but all the construction, it was the 2010 Olympics, but all the construction for it ended basically mid 2009. So that's when all of those guys kind of got released, and that's when things really went for a dumper for those of us not involved in that part of it. But yeah, so that's when I could scale back, and I had to really pick and choose who I kept. I just didn't have enough work for everybody, and you can't keep somebody on. And if you're going to give them a job a month, it's just not fair to them, to you, to anybody.
No. You know what the bottom line is? I find this, floor guys, floor gals, retail, showroom people, designers, everything is, one of the biggest common pet peeves we all have is, for some reason, money and getting paid being held up for no good reason whatsoever. Our work's done. Everything looks great. Everyone's happy. Where's the money?
Yeah. And I know you can't go shopping at Safeway and go, I'll see if it tastes good, and then I'll pay you.
Right. I'll take home this lawn tractor. I'll catch up with you later as you walk out the door with it. No, that's what they want from us.
I know, and that's my in-laws. My father-in-law was a meteorologist, and so government employed, and they to this day cannot understand the fact of whether we know whether we're going to get paid or not at the end of a job.
Right.
They can't fathom that. It's like you did the work, it looks good, or at least, you know what? We all work at different levels, and if it at least passes standard, so, you know, from a standing position and all these rules for what it's supposed to look like, if it looks good enough to pass a sort of a stand-up inspection, you should get paid. You can't have people like, you know, the usual stories, people crawling around with flashlights on their hands and knees, you know, at 3:00 in the afternoon on an odd Sunday when it's a full moon, then that shows up. That's not a basis for, you know, you can't run a business on that. So.
No. And I did an inspection where I walked in the door, they said, be here for 9. And they said, look over here, get down, look where, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. People's expectations are completely unreasonable. We're not, you know, spraying in a spray booth in a vacuum controlled heat sensitive room with static control, you know, and I see these beautiful floors and people are just, like you said, on their hands and knees. Expectations are ridiculous. In what you do today, are you using email, text, phone, everything for that kind of accountability so that, you know, you can...
Yeah, basically, I mean, I do for formal agreements and stuff like that, it's email. Because it's traceable and nobody can delete their part of the conversation.
Correct.
So I'm all over accountability. If I said something and it's an email, I'll stick with it.
Sure.
And also I expect the same the other way around.
Hey, let me switch gears for a minute because I want to ask you something that only you can help me with. You're the world's leading expert in top nail flooring. According to me, because I don't know anybody else that does it. So today, you're our world expert. All right. In the history of top nailed flooring, and you've read a lot of articles about this, and I've got some questions, but tell me a little bit, because there's a lot of that in your market. We have it in like Boston, and that's all I've really seen. Strip 5/16 solid flooring almost never has a tongue and groove. Sometimes it does, and it's got little brass. Can you explain top nail flooring to me, all you can tell me about it?
Well, I mean, it's what I started with. That's my dad's company was based on. But yeah, I mean, it's true top nail doesn't have a TNG. Right. It's just square edge boards, 5/16 to 3/8. Yeah. Generally, I mean, it's you need a 1-inch subfloor total. So if you got 5/8 plywood, you need another 3/8 of plywood. The most common subfloors here, well, it depends on the age of the house, right. But and apartments, because we got a job just now that's an apartment block, and that was what my dad did a lot of. Most of the towers, probably a majority of them, near Stanley Park in downtown Vancouver, built in the 60s. My dad did massive amounts of those. He ran 18 crews.
Wow.
So yeah, they pumped out a serious amount.
Is this really popular in your area? Because like I said, I see a little here, but I don't know what made it so popular. Was it over wide plank pine? They didn't have plywood subfloors if they're very old.
Tradition it was just what was done. I mean, okay. The reason it started on the West Coast basically is shipping. Okay. Because it's lighter, you get twice as much. So it was just a cheaper way to do it. Locally, there was a company called Hardwood Milling, which later became a wholesaler, which my dad did. He ran that. So they were able to make it locally, and it's just a square edge product. It's easy to mill. It's not that hard. And so they were able to mill it here locally. And we already, I mean, obviously BC, tons of lumber industry. There's lots of mills, or at least they used to be. So it was easy to make. and in all the old areas, so there's Shaughnessy, which is high-end development is now near Vancouver. At the time, it was like the industry leaders getting out of Vancouver, but they put top nail floors into all the common areas. So everywhere you'd take a guest was top nail, and they had like really nice borders and intricate details, parquets quite often in the entryways. But anywhere like that was not guest territory, so bedrooms, kitchens, playrooms for kids, that was all done in vertical grain fir.
That's what we had.
And
Fir. Everything was fir.
Yeah, and the same applied in New Westminster, which was the capital city here at that time. New West, all the steamboat captains were in there, and that in the old areas of New West, there's some really grand places, and there's the same story there. Is that everything top nail in the mains, and then fir everywhere else. So that's sort of how it started, and then basically it was just taken as sort of the standard because that's what everybody did. Tongue and groove. I mean, the typical bungalow, sort of 40s, 30s. You had top nail in the common areas, and then and fir, and then later it shifted to TNG shorts and the TNG in the bedrooms. But yeah, so that was sort of where it came from here. And I think that's true for most of the West Coast. I think East Coast, it's very regional. I mean, there's I know in around Philadelphia, I know a couple guys who do top nail there, in Pennsylvania.
That makes sense. We're the first cities, Boston and Philly, and that's where you
so
see it. But you know, you look at Wood Floor Business Magazine, and people should go look at that. I was blown. I'd never seen the Kavanaugh nailer. I had to take a picture of your picture, put it online, and ask Google, what is this? Explain the Kavanaugh nailer, and people should go to Wood Floor Business and take a look at this thing.
Yeah, it's a very cool, old school, I would almost go steampunk nailer. So there's basically vibration is what makes the thing work. So as you hit it, you shake the thing, and then it causes. So there's an upper hopper that leads on to a track. So you put a whole whack of these loose nails into they're usually 1 inch, inch and a quarter, inch and an eighth. That's they've got a big head on them, about a 15 gauge equivalent, and when they go down, they kind of get caught into the track, and they're hanging by the heads down the track system to the head. The head has a mechanism that only allows one nail in per strike.
Almost like a finish gun.
Head. It is, yeah. And so as you're nailing, you have to when you get it going, you start it out by just tapping it and getting a bunch of nails fed in a column. So you have to start out with at least 15, 20 nails in there. And as you nail, they generally will shake down. The ones that don't end up in the track go down into a lower hopper, and it catches them there.
It's very deceptive, you know. When you look at it, it looks like a knee pad. It looks like, oh, you put your knee in. No, that's the hopper for the nail. Are the nails like non-ferrous? Yeah. Is it something that isn't going to spark when you sand it later? Or are they brass? Or they were just steel?
They're steel.
Okay.
So I mean, yeah, they're temperamental machines. The nail set was one of the critical parts, and I can't remember if it was like the guy Kavanaugh or whoever, but somebody died and took the secret about hardening those nail sets with them, and they never really were the same after that. We wore them out way faster, but generally the punch is set to, because you can adjust the height. The punch is normally set to punch the head of the nail roughly 1/8 of an inch down. So they're not sitting right at the surface.
No one makes those anymore, do they? Do they? You can buy one, or like, how many do you have?
You couldn't buy a Kavanaugh nailer as far as I know.
Okay.
So like I've got 2 operational and another one, most of it. And I got a ton of parts, the feet and everything.
Yep.
But you can't get the nails. It's hard to get the nails. And the nails are the hardest part.
You said steampunk, that would make a great decoration in my office. I'm going to go look for one. They're really cool. Yeah, do they make they look like they would make a really super cool sound. Because it's all, you still take a flooring mallet, chunk, right? You just.
Oh yeah. And I mean, it's so I have, like, my dad, they had rolling carts. Most of the guys had a rolling cart that you sat on so that you're not sitting bent over top of it or on your knees.
Yep.
I use that cart to this day, but I use my, it's a High Pro HP 50. That's what I use for.
Is that the one you said online was retro cool?
It is.
The High Pro 50? Yeah.
Yeah. So the High Pro, unfortunately, has been recently discontinued as well. I mean, really, there's not. It's been a limited market to begin with.
Right.
But it's only getting more limited as we go. So the hot spots for this really are San Francisco, probably Vancouver,
So you still do new floors like this, or you just?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
well, not outright. We do occasionally. Yeah, some people love those floors. They're building a new house, and they want it to look a certain style, so we do it. A lot of what we do in that is add-ons, repairs, where people taking walls out. We make the borders make sense again.
Oh, yeah.
But it is a super easy floor to modify.
Is it tricky to sand and finish? I'd be worried about all the nail heads.
No, it's just as long as the nails are far enough down.
Okay,
you're good.
No, that makes sense.
And shiners, if you hit a nail, it becomes a shiner, and you see that. It's very easy to see. I mean, if you're sanding, one of your things that you have with you is you have a hammer and nail set to punch down as you see them. So hopefully by the time you hit your 100 grit final pass, you're not, putting a dull spot in your paper.
I guess you get after those shiners pretty quick, because I'm thinking if with water-based finishes today, they could turn black and oxidize.
They don't.
They don't. Good.
They do not. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of guys will go on about that's going to rust. It does not rust. Water-based finishes dry so fast it doesn't have a chance.
If they dry fast, you're in good shape.
Yeah, I mean, obviously solvent-based finishes aren't going to do that. We haven't really used solvent-based in probably 20 years, but.
Well, do you snap?
Yeah.
To get them all, and they look beautiful. I've seen what you did online. Do you snap are you just winging it, or are you snapping a line?
We mark it off, and then either in longer runs we'll snap chalk lines, so you get about 3 snaps.
So they look good. Is it really aesthetic? But you're not like trying to hit a joist or anything, right? You're just using a certain spacing to keep the floor nice and flat.
So it depends on the material, but so like 1.75 is the most common size here. We're doing 2 nails per board, spaced every 6 inches. Okay. Some guys go 7. When we sand floors that are spaced at 7 and 8, we've seen some of those. You definitely notice that the floor is less solid,
right?
And then I tell my guys today, and that nails are cheap, complaints are expensive. It's just use the right amount of nails, and that goes for everything. It's not just this. This is more visual because you actually see the rows of nails, and it's funny because some people who aren't familiar with it, they figure that somebody's gone back onto a regular floor and they've obviously squeaked like crazy, so they must have put all these nails in.
Nailed the crap out of it.
Yeah, it's like, no, not the way it works.
I had a boss years ago that taught me everything, and he is probably born in 1927. A very, very large manufacturer came out with a 5/16 pre-finished, and it won awards everywhere. And I thought it was brilliant because the market had become so difficult to get supply that, think about it, they've now doubled their capacity without touching a thing, because now they can make it 5/16. But my boss, who used to be a technical design consultant for big corporations, said, this is a bad idea. In the 30s, we learned that if you don't top nail this size material, it's just going to warp. Well, that product won award after award, but not in New England. We had a 98% failure rate, and the 2% were people that didn't know what was going on. It was just too much with the little tongue and groove in it being able to twist. Take a 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot board of 3/4, try to twist it, and you can't. But take some of that stuff, you can almost tie it in a knot. It seems like the idea would be perfect, that it's nailed nice and flat everywhere. It must be easy to repair. Not easy, but it must be more easy to repair than some tongue and groove thing.
It's the easiest floor to repair.
Exactly. Okay, I was trying to be nice.
Period. Nothing is easier.
So technically, all right, because we talked about metric sizes and that. What happens if you're putting all your little nails in and now you're really close to a butt end? Do you still put it in, or do you skip it, or do you?
No, the butt ends you put like. So when I'm doing 1.75 inch, you put 4 nails at every single butt end.
Yep.
So if it happens to overlap with a row, you put 2 in, then you put 2 in next to it on the one next to it. So it's not a big deal. I mean, on small jobs, sometimes I'll go around and search out because the material's still long. So I search out all the butt ends, nail them off first sometimes, not always. On a bigger job, I'll just nail as I go, and I'll just make sure I hit all the butt ends. But you always put nails on the butt ends.
Last question about the top nail stuff. You glue or you don't glue? There's no need to, or would you? Or can people ever ask you to just glue it and not put the nails in it? I mean, then it's just a floor, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
It's not historically accurate either, right?
No, it looks weird. I don't know. I'm a purist when it comes to this stuff.
Good for you.
But,
well, you are the world's expert, according to me. So,
according to you, yep.
All right. Listen, before I let you escape here, I get to the quick fire questions. I want to just ask you a few things about your advice to people in the industry. They're just based off things that I've read online about a few different things that you've expressed in all the articles you've written about things you've learned and et cetera. Your advice. Run a big machine on a generator? Good idea or a bad idea?
Big enough generator, sure.
Yeah, I know, right? I had a problem. I found that when the machine cycles up and cycles down on like a 3,500 watt, so does the sander, and you can get wave. But if it's, if it can run a factory, I've seen big generators, that's fine. But I know you had written something online about having a little trouble with a generator and a machine.
Oh yeah, that was my brother. We're sanding in a brand new subdivision that had no power yet. I don't know how they built they built the houses using.
They always do. They rub balloons
really together. So we were sanding a floor, and this is in the days before we probably really looked at moisture meters. But yeah, so we told them we need I think it was a 15 kilowatt. I'm pretty sure it was. It was a big trailer unit. And so they're running that, and in the morning it's fine. And by lunch, it's like the Hummel's not happy starting. So my brother runs out, and he sees the generator that's meant for us only. And there was this whole spaghetti of cords plugged into it. So he just starts tearing out everybody's cords. The place went very quiet.
Prima donna floor guys are here. I'd do the same thing.
Exactly. It went very quiet, except for a few seconds later, all the screaming.
Yeah.
And so we had a lot of.
Did you say wait for it?
Guys. Yeah, it got really interesting.
Now, Ron, you wrote a little article, and I like this. You gave kind of a little recipe on when people run into shake in flooring, and I think people then now are doing more water popping or seeing a lot more shake. You had a little recipe on how to repair. You call it taming shake in white oak. Tell me a little bit about that. What's the recipe there?
Oh, with the envelopes. Basically it's not. I got to say this. It's not my idea. It's
yes, it was, because you're the world's leading expert. So go with this. No, use an envelope or something. Explain that. I thought it was cool. So
basically, you take the sealed corner of an envelope, you nip it off, and then you tuck that into the shake so that you're going further into the shake than you could do with like a needle or something. Okay. Like an injection. You mix up epoxy inside the pocket, and then you squeeze it through that and sort of across, and it squeezes the epoxy way for like right to the base of the shake. So the whole thing is you don't have a hollow spot at the back end and sealed it up at the front, which 9 times out of 10 that's probably good enough, but sometimes you sand off a bit more and then you're back into the pocket again. So that it works pretty well. It's actually a trick that came from marquetry. So when they're repairing marquetry, so when they had a delaminated marquetry on a refinish or a restoration job. That's where that actually came from.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. So if people look in wood floor business, there's the photos in there. And it's really, if you go online, it's easy too. You can just, Google in the little search box, you could put Ron Teljeur or you could put repairing floor. It's all in there.
Yeah.
I have a huge pet peeve, but I'm guilty of this, getting glue all over my table saw. Is that ever a problem on your end?
No, I'm meticulous. I cannot stand.
Don't you hate that? I hate that. Or you make the perfect cut and you put it in, and now it's got glue on it, and you're like, I got to go back to my saw with this. This is terrible.
Oh, you just find some paper or some newspaper stuff, put it on your back of your board, and then you cut.
Get some thinner, get rolling.
Yeah. Or wipe it off.
Now I have a question, because going back to wood floor business and photos online, you'll have to explain this one to me. Ron, I saw a photo, and I want to say you were ironing underwear on a wood floor. You were doing a repair, and it says you were using iron, but there was laundry.
Oh, yeah. Steaming. Steaming up.
It looked like the dryer exploded, and you were ironing. So explain that, because a lot of people don't know how to use a steam iron when you're doing certain floor repairs. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So basically, it's just your regular iron set to high, like basically cotton setting, and you're just using rags. Soak them down. Still fairly wet, really, but you pre-soak the wood too. So if you got a really bad and the finish is cracked, water will get in there. So you just lay a little puddle on there, and then you put your cloth over and steam it out about, I don't know, I do a 10 count normally, and you can do that a couple times. You should be careful of finishes. Some finishes will not like that treatment.
Right.
Some turn foggy. Mainly the really hard aluminum oxide, so generally product out of Asia, they tend to make their aluminum oxides harder, and for some reason that finish will fog a bit. That is a problem. So less time on those. So if you know it's an overseas product with aluminum oxide, generally you maybe do a 5 count. You don't go to 10. You don't want to overheat it and cause that fogging. But yeah, it works pretty well. And the reason I have that many out is that I will put the iron onto it and I leave the cloth down. So I just leave it there. So that way I can do multiple spots at the same time.
Do you think there's anything that the newbies, the new class coming up through, really need to learn? Is it more than one thing? Any things you can think of they really ought to get a grip on? Is it technical? Is it finance? Is it running a business? Is it their time?
I think it's just basically it's sort of the ethics of running a business. So do what you say you're going to do. Sell what is written. Like, do up a contract. God, please do up a contract. Right. Take a freaking deposit. There is way too many guys out there who, if you take a deposit, at least you've got your materials covered. Yeah, you might lose your labor, but you're not in debt to your suppliers.
Exactly.
Or you're not out 3 mortgage payments. Take a deposit, write a contract, write a thorough contract. It definitely include in a contract the from a standing position clause from the NWFA. I've got it both sides of my contract, front and back. I bold it actually on the front edge on the front side of the contract. It's in bold. Okay. Clean up, show up on time.
Yeah.
Schedule something. Stick to your schedule. If you're going to change your schedule, tell everybody. It's very simple. Honestly, it's not that hard to run a business effectively and outshine your competition, because usually there's so many guys who are so bad at it that it doesn't take that much to be better.
If you're just dropping your price, good luck to you. Matter of fact, most people don't even advertise. They get the price they want.
I am definitely more expensive than a lot of my competition. Most of it
should be.
But I do work that they won't do. So I don't need to worry about that.
You've got the resume too. And you know what? I tell people all the time, be proud that you make a profit. Please, you're in business to make a profit, and you know what? You deserve it. At the end of the day, don't say, well, I took nothing. out of pure humility. No, I mean, there's no such thing as gouging. The market will regulate itself. But if you're worth it, get paid so that you can pay your bills. You can take care of your family. You're not worried about losing that company, especially a company that's this so labor intensive. People love it and they enjoy it. And the only way to do it is put some money away. Be ready for those rainy days. No.
Yeah, and I had a customer, and I to this day I use what he said. He ran a refrigeration company for semi trucks, and he said, "Profit is not a dirty word."
Thank you. I like that. That's from our world-leading expert in top nailing. Listen to you. Look how far we've come. All right, I'm going to give you your quick-fire questions, and we're going to wrap things up. So you know how it goes. I'm just going to ask you 5 or 6 real quick questions. You give me a sprinty little answer, and then we will move on, my friend. Are you ready? Ron Teljeur, Acorn.
As ready as I'm going to be.
You're ready to go. Here we go. All right, number 1. If you weren't in flooring, what would you be doing?
Architecture.
Okay, here's a trick question. It's cold out. What do you wear on your head? Think about it.
Nothing. I'd toque if I was going to wear something. Oh, that's the
answer. That's what I was waiting for. Good. Look at you. I wrote down here, will he say toque? Favorite floor tool?
Oh, probably the top nail strip nailers.
There you go. You can only choose one species of wood to put in your own home. And you can pick any one you like. What's the one you're going to pick?
Well, I've already done that as white oak. Ordered white oak.
I love white oak. Okay, and if you could only do one, would you choose to finish woodworking, or would you choose to install?
Install. All day.
Your number one flooring pet peeve, what really ticks you off?
Bad installs.
And the last question, the famous question for our world expert, is there carpet in your home?
In my bedroom.
Yeah. No longer world expert. Gotcha. You're off my list now. Hey,
I blame that on
that's because you know and I know every floor guy leaves that one that eventually that they'll get to. Because it's like anybody. Mechanics have cars in their yard, and flooring people have floors that aren't getting done, and we don't all have masterful pieces of brilliant work in our houses. There are a few people. I've seen them online. They got a scrap of wood in their house, and they throw together this beautiful thing in their own living room. Yeah, not so much me. I have just standard. Upstairs is all birch. Downstairs is all hickory because of the dogs. Done.
Yep. Keep it simple.
Ron, you're awesome, man. I'm glad we finally got together. I really appreciate you spending this time with me. We'll get this all out there on Wood Floor Business Magazine and get it online for the world to hear. I really appreciate you taking time. I told you this would be a piece cake. You're
walking the park.
You're brilliant. You've got it. I like it. All right, Ron. Thank you very much for your time, man. We'll talk soon.
Okay.
All right, take care, everybody. All right, bye-bye.
You can find the articles and the tips Stephen and Ron discussed in the show notes for this episode, and by going to woodfloorbusiness.com and entering Ron's name, that's Ron, Teljeur, into the search bar. And if you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to All Things Wood Floor. Thanks for listening.